Some of the most terrible war crimes of the U.S. Army were committed during the campaign in Sicily in mid-1943. On July 10, 1943, the Americans arrived in the small town of Kanikati, where they were welcomed with open arms by the locals. The ordinary people were exhausted from constant combat, which had turned the town into ruins. The artillery fire in the preceding days had destroyed many houses and public buildings. One of the many shells had shattered the wall of a soap factory, a product that was highly valuable in times of scarcity. During the American occupation, about 40 villagers took the opportunity to go to the establishment with buckets and fill them with liquid soap. When the commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel George H. McCaffrey, heard about this, he went to the factory to disperse the crowd. When the Sicilians ignored his orders and continued looting the building, the American lost his patience. He ordered his men to shoot the people, but the troops, aware that this amounted to killing defenseless civilians, refused to do so. It was then that McCaffrey, feeling that his authority was in danger, decided to take action on his own. He drew his .45 caliber Colt revolver, aimed at the crowd, and pulled the trigger again and again. His soldiers watched in horror as people fell one after another, and chaos took over the scene. The lieutenant colonel reloaded his weapon twice, so he fired 18 shots in total. In total, there were 8 confirmed deaths during the Kanikati massacre, including a 12-year-old child who died from a gunshot wound to the stomach. However, it is believed that there may have been more victims. The slaughter was covered up by the U.S. Army, and it was not known until 1998 when the son of one of the witnesses revealed the events. There were no consequences for McCaffrey, who not only was not punished but was also awarded government positions. The war crimes of the U.S. Army in Italy did not end there. More massacres occurred in the following days. Many American soldiers were convinced that their orders were to kill all Italians they encountered. This was because, while traveling to Sicily by boat, they heard a furious speech by General George Patton over the loudspeakers, which said, "During the battle, you might see enemies shooting at you, but then, when they're surrounded, try to surrender. Oh no, those bastards must die. You have to kill them, stab them in the ribs or liver. We'll earn the reputation of being killers, and when rumors spread that we are beasts, no one will want to face us." The consequences of these words would be devastating. On July 14, 1943, a battle was fought near the Sicilian village of Biscari, resulting in a victory for the U.S. troops, who captured 48 enemies. No one suspected that Sergeant Horace West, who was in charge of the prisoners, had his own plans. The officer led the victims to an olive grove in the rear. Later, West would say the following: "There was something boiling inside me. I just wanted to kill and destroy, to see the enemies bleed to death." Upon reaching their destination, he forced the Italians to line up while his comrades watched in astonishment. The sergeant took a submachine gun and aimed it at the prisoners, signaling to the other Americans to turn away if they didn't want to see blood. West then opened fire on the defenseless men, delighted with the spectacle of blood unfolding before his eyes. The corpses lay on the ground, and a few were still agonizing amid cries of pain. The sergeant approached the dying, put a pistol to their hearts, and finished them off one by one. When news of the Biscari massacre reached Patton, West was tried by a military tribunal. He was sentenced to life in prison, but later, President Dwight Eisenhower pardoned him, and he served until the end of the war. He died in 1974 without having paid for his crime.